which obviously will bring them votes. I mean, she's had some bad press in the past because of the Native American stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, and the fact that she was a Republican most of her life, so besides that stuff, what I get from her is sincerity, though. I do get that she's sincere and she really wants to see a difference happening from these billionaires. And, her and Bernie are saying the same thing, that, the wealth gap is just too much. And you'd have to be insane, like I was saying earlier, to be a working class anything and vote for a billionaire. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, I see a lot of memes going around explaining to those people just how much $1 billion is and how no one, including you and every extended family member you can think of and have, will ever make that kind of money in a lifetime, ever. And that's including people that have good jobs like doctors and stuff. So it's just an incredible amount of money. And there's this woman, she runs close with Bernie, and I'm going to call her by her initials, AOC, because I don't know how to pronounce her name, and I don't want to slaughter it, but it's a Latina chick, and she's on the East Coast, and she's like, basically, she says a lot of things, but one of which is, hey, I come from the streets of everything. I was a bartender for years and years and years, and I have your best interest at heart. So she's impressing me. Do you know much about her? I don't know a lot about her. I don't even know what position she holds, but I do know that her and Bernie have been photographed together as if they're the young and old version of a revolutionary kind of energy.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen her speak a number of times. I can't get her name either. It's just AOC. Yeah. That's all I know from
Alexandria something. Yes.
Ortiz.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
Something.
We almost got it.
Yeah. Corinthians or something.
It's something C. Starts with a C. Yeah, no, she's cool. I like her energy, but I forgot why I brought her up. But yeah, I'm digging her. So I feel like if Bernie wanted to run with Elizabeth, I think that they would absolutely mop the floor with Donald Trump. I think, and this is just my prediction, and of course I'm slightly biased, I would say that Bernie could even pick someone that's close to him that he feels like working closely with. I don't know these people because I don't know who he runs with. That AOC is the only one I know he chills with a little bit and rubs elbows with. So, and I think she's too young for him to pick for a VP, but whoever he picks, I think that he'll still win over Trump. And I feel this way, and I had the opportunity to hang out on the college campus. I didn't even go to regular college, but I'm like the old person now hanging out with the millennials, asking them about their political understandings. And I got a chance to the other day, and I was like, you guys are our secret weapon. They're like, how so? And I'm like, you guys got the numbers, man. You got the numbers, and the baby boomers are dying. They're like, but let us tell you about the newer generation. I'm like, Gen Z? And they're like, yep. And I go, what's going on with them? They're like, they're the actual secret weapon. They're the new and improved Terminator. And I'm like, tell me why you feel this way. And they're like, because they have been completely born into this new age that you and I kind of take for granted, that, we have our old style of living before the internet, and then we engaged in the internet in our adulthood. This newer generation has been fully immersed, and they don't want to be tracked. They're not into being tracked. So this is not every person in that generation, for God's sakes, but this is a common denominator that a lot of them have. They don't want to be tracked, so they all use the same sign-in information from all people all over the world will be using the same sign-in information so that they can't be tracked with where they're at. Now, I don't know a lot about technology and how that works out and what all that means, but I got out of the millennial, they don't want to be tracked. So what you have now is this generation coming up under the millennials, if you will, who are sick of the shit already, and they're 14. And I'm like, oh, shit. This is Bernie's like the grandfather of the bunch, and he's leading this, open-ended movement that the millennials seem to be behind. And from the sounds of it, if the Z generation, they call them Zoomers, are into voting. I don't know. They might be that alternative that they don't vote or whatever. But apparently we've got some younger generations coming up with some stiff collars that don't want to fuck around. So I'm like, we may just have a handle on this planet sooner than later.
Yeah, I don't see it lasting the way it's been going on for the longest time. for much longer, because, like I said, the gap it keeps widening to a point where, like, the vast majority, can you imagine, like, out of the 320 some odd million people that we have in this country, imagine if like 300 million people were poor, not even middle class, but poor. Man, there would be a revolution that they can't fight. The rich people, they wouldn't be able to stop this many people. So it's almost like, in their efforts to protect their wealth or their property or their assets, they're not realizing that this fear base that they have, it's irrelevant, because it can't last as long or for much longer. People just will not take it.
Well, no, we won't take it, and power to the people has a lot of strength, and it's been chanted probably in many different countries and many different languages at many different times. So no, I do think that the part of that nervousness that we're picking up from some of these really rich people is they do know that there's a time limit. They do know that all you have to do is study history. At some point,
revolution.
The tyranny gets attacked. Eat the rich. It's a thing. And so I do think that there's exactly. I do think they've got. I think they're kind of shaking. They're shaking a little bit. They know it. But let me just get you this angle too. So they're not only anxious because they know there's a limited time before we eat the rich, because there's nothing left to eat, but they also know that what they make their money on, depleting the earth of oils and making chemicals and things like this, these are finite things. So yes, we have a lot of oil, but there will be a time where there's no oil, and then we destroy our planet because we're taking one of the major elements out of it and expecting it to run properly. It's like taking out the heart of a body, or a major organ and expecting it to run. The blood would be a good analogy, in expecting someone to live. So the earth won't let us do that. She's way too old and way too smart. She'll shake us off like she's done before, and if she wants to. And so we have to catch humans' egos before she shakes us off if we want to continue the civilization that we started and worked so hard for or toward or in, however you want to say it. So it's an interesting space right now, but these multi-billionaires generally make money off mining something out of the earth or creating something that's used from a product of the earth, and they don't realize that there is an ending to that, and they're running at it like there's endless supplies forever and ever. It's because their egos are so big. They don't care about their great-great-grandkids. They just want to keep that million coming in every month. So they're just out of their minds. So what we have are sociopaths running the world, and at some point the tipping happens. Like you said, at some point the differentiation gets so intense that we have to now attack the 1% or whatever, 0.5% or whatever this is, because there's so few and we're so many. And people say, well, they'll just use the military to come after us. I'm like, but that would be Americans killing Americans. You tell me any military person that would actually do that. They're hardcore for the military, but they're not going to shoot their cousin in the head because he doesn't like something that the president doesn't like or something. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, and even if you are able to train military people to take orders, they're still human, they're still spirit, and they still have to make decisions that will ultimately benefit them in the long run, or if they're just going to be somebody to take orders for the rich. Because, just many times you look at the police and you look at soldiers, they're just fighting, protecting those with funds from those with none.
Ultimately, and you can tell by the way a police officer lives his existence. There's no money in taking the person who just got stranded because their tire blew out to their home. There's no money in picking up and serving people in that way, but there is money, however, to go ahead and slap a ticket on there for breaking down in the wrong place, damn you. So they've turned it into a business, just like our prisons. It's a business-ran thing, and you can read documents and articles about how they did this in the foster care back in the day and probably trafficked the kids out the back or something. There's just all kinds of corruption. And guess what? Most of our military, most of our cops come from the military, and most of them have PTSD. And I'm not going to start a whole conversation on PTSD because I think it takes at least 3 shows to talk about it in depth. But I do know that I have PTSD and I have no trauma in my life. So I can't imagine someone going through trauma after trauma after trauma and not having post-traumatic stress disorder to some degree, maybe to a violent degree, maybe to a small degree, but either or. We don't need trigger-happy people in charge of guns protecting the people, because you see it coming up in the news all the time. I mean, there was like a while there, it was like every time I watched the news, some cop was on trial for shooting someone for no good reason, just walking in their home and shooting them. They thought they had a gun and they had a hairbrush in their hand or something. I'm like, what the hell? We need to train our cops, I see, a lot better.
Yeah, but usually the mentality to be a police officer, and and not to take shots at them because it's
right.
They're humans too.
They're
living, they're having their experience, but the few that I've known were basically folks who got bullied in high school. So they felt like that was a way to redeem themselves in life, and now they become the bullies, so to speak. You know what I mean? They needed that badge to feel some sense of authority because they didn't always have that. And some of them become muscle bound, some of them become like real nervous, worried, defensive, and quick-tempered.
So funny. Two of my last shows on Downward Dogma were about bullying and the psychology behind it, and how these children often have zero control at home, and of course probably have a bully parent, but they're just acting out. And of course kids learn from their parents, and it's generally where we get the information from, family members. And they come to school and they start taking control because they have zero, and they start trying to make themselves feel secure and in control, and that usually looks like force. So it's interesting that we're talking about this, because to round up an hour show that we had, basically we're like, we need to get some psychologists in schools and start recognizing this, because all the studies that the psychologists are saying is these symptoms often come out, bullying symptoms, like the symptoms that are around that, 2 to 4 years old. If we can see it and, so to speak, manage it and help as much as we can in that space, we'll probably have a lot less bullies, which we said would lead to a lot less corporate bullies potentially. So that's a long time coming for healing that kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot to be said about that bully mentality, and you were touching on some of it.
And yeah. So, but I wish cops well. But just to have the mentality to go into the law enforcement where you're not going to make a lot of money, you're going to put your life at risk at times, and I think they do it just because it gives them a sense of authority, like
Agreed.
Puff your chest out in a way, and
to cover up
get away
some
with
insecurities.
Shit.
Yeah, they use it to cover it up, and you can just tell, because it's like that, that saying of like, the bigger the truck, the smaller the penis. That's how I feel about people's egos. I'm like, the bigger their ego is, probably the smaller their penis is. And that's not a theory or anything I've studied or done research on, but I'm just saying I can see that puffed up chest that you're talking about. So much ego and insecurity trying to be covered up by fake security, fake confidence. It's always impressive.
Which, by the way, I drive a compact car, so...
For all the lady listeners, just to put that out there.
Everybody know.
We're doing an analysis.
Back to the debate last night. I still think that Bernie won it because, nobody was really saying anything.
Agreed.
Joe Biden.
Oh, God.
He needs to step out. Because, and I have no idea how he is getting anybody to vote for him. He can't finish his sentences. He even said last night that he was running for Senate. He was running for the Senate. What?
No,
at
Joe.
What point in time?
Wrong life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. How are you so disconnected, and you're already going on to the next sentence before you finish one sentence, and then you're not even pronouncing your words. It feels like he's got some dementia going on.
You're
or
taking
he's
the words
just
right out of my
left
head.
drunk.
And there's probably a couple things coming into this. He is in the age where you might start getting some symptoms of dementia, and then also